I
Yeah,
wanted to talk
huge.
about this. So you're one of these,
I'm the canary in the coal mine.
yeah, you see it before everybody else. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering too, to sort of put a date on this, we've been, I guess, been at war with Iran for a while. I guess the war is not, there's a truce or whatever now, but the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, and everybody keeps talking about we're going to see it. It just hasn't worked through the system yet, and all of a sudden we're going to see all these prices go up. So you're already starting to see some things, I guess, and maybe you'll see even more. But what are you seeing?
Yeah. So let me tell you what is interesting is we're seeing a lot of people be underemployed, but I think they're going to stay underemployed, especially seeing like mid-level management from all fields really, and they're being replaced. Now, yes, some of it is AI. I mean, you definitely do see that. I'm seeing people that, they've been making six figures for a decade, and then there's a merger, or they just, reduction in workforce, and they cannot find another job similar. So now, their whole lifestyle has been six figure, and they have to scale it down. And so then that's where, their mortgage is behind. They're going to lose that, $60,000-$70,000 car that they finance. So yeah, we're already seeing that. But right now, it's really, most all of my clients have jobs. It's not that they don't have jobs. It's just that they're now underemployed.
So I wonder if we took just your new matter signing information for the last 20 years, ever since your firm's been in, and just plotted it on a graph, and then we put the economy behind it on the same graph. I would love to see the prediction.
It's going to be pretty similar.
Welcome to the Founding Partner Podcast. Join your host, Jonathan Hawkins, as we explore the fascinating stories of successful law firm founders. We'll uncover their beginnings, triumph over challenges, and practice growth. Whether you aspire to launch your own firm, have an entrepreneurial spirit, or are just curious about the legal business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Founding Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hawkins. This is a podcast where I get to interview law firm founders and hear about all the cool stuff they're doing. And today we've got Lorena Saedi, who is the founder of Saedi Law Group here in Atlanta, which is a bankruptcy niche practice. So Lorena, thanks for coming. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Fill in the introduction where I messed up.
Sure.
And then we'll dive into your background.
No worries. So my name is Lorena Saedi. I am the founder of Saedi Law Group. I am a bankruptcy attorney, entrepreneur, wife, mother of two teenage boys. Over the years, I have been able to build a consumer bankruptcy law firm here in Atlanta. But I not only manage my firm, I still practice, which I love because it's very important to me to be able to not lose that connection with my clients. Before becoming a lawyer, my background was in technology, programming and technology. So that technical mindset has really shaped how I've built my business, how I approach problems. I'm very passionate about innovation, AI systems, and creating just better ways to serve clients and save myself a lot of time as well.
So you won't mind if I call you a tech nerd, will you?
No, I've been a nerd my whole life, and I'm still a nerd, and I wear that proudly.
So I went to Georgia Tech undergrad, so I was sort of a tech nerd too, but probably I left it behind. So you know way more about it than I do. Passed me by.
I was the kid that I got a Commodore 64 for Christmas when I was little, and I just fell in love with it. And I've been programming since I was 7, and I will always love it. If I could be locked in a room all day with my computers, I would be so happy.
I want to dive into that. So as you build your firm and you're building your systems, how often do you use that? I mean, is it sort of the way you think, you approach everything?
It is. And it's funny. I think that's actually been, for me personally, that's been the secret to my success is I've always approached everything in a systems way, which is very much a tech brain, I guess you would say. So when I decided to start my own firm, that was my superpower. I didn't have to hire people to do my website, set up my systems. I was able to, I've been automating for years. I'm using AI now and I've got my agents, but at the end of the day, a lot of that is still just implementing, automation and logic and systems. So I was doing that before. So just transferring it over to a law firm really, for me, wasn't that difficult. And that's really what helped me get a fast start running my own firm.
And I would imagine a bankruptcy practice, is it consumer facing or business or both?
Well, for my firm is consumer facing. So we only do chapter 7s and chapter 13s. We do some business chapter 7s, but those are total liquidations. But 99% of my clients, it's consumer facing.
And so I think having a good, strong, automated tech stack probably is key to really running your practice.
It is. It is. It completely is. And, my staff, I'm very blessed to have a great staff, but we're constantly, training. They probably want to strangle me sometimes. So I'm like, oh, got a new tool. And they're rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, but then, we implement it and they're like, okay, this is saving me time. So I'm happy.
I want to get into the AI stuff, but before we do that, let's go back. I do want to hear about, with your technology background, your programming background, how do you approach, and this is before AI, how did you approach sort of your tech stack, how you built it? When you're out there looking at what system to put in to run your practice, how do you approach that? And then is it something that you're like, I want to get something that I can customize, or how do you approach it?
Yeah. So I will tell you, I think over the years, I've looked at everything. As you know, I think lawyers and doctors, they try to sell us everything, right? They just assume that we know nothing. And they try to just sell you these big overblown packages. So my personal take on it is I don't want all my eggs in one basket. So I'm not a fan of these. I won't say them by name, but there are some practice management companies that purport to do everything, and I have tried them. I've had some major issues with some of them, and went back to my standard practice of I like to have different tools, because it's very hard for an application to be good at everything, and that's where they fail. They try to sell you this package that they can do all these things well, and they can't. And so, for me, I look at like my CRM. The one that I use does very specific things for me, and it works great. That's different than what I'm going to use for my project management. There's great tools nowadays like Zapier, Make, NNN that you can connect, and you can, everybody can talk, everybody can get along. So my personal take on it is when I'm looking at tools, I'm looking at that specific task that I want. And I don't want something that's so overblown that, it can't just do one thing well.
All
so
right.
That's my personal
You mentioned N8N. I tried to play around with that, and this was probably 12 months ago. Maybe it's easier now, but man, it was hard.
It is.
And I couldn't even connect everything correctly, and I just gave up.
You know what? But let me tell you something. Keep plugging at it, because for me, that, a lot of people, they're like, well, how did you learn this one? How did you learn? I will tell you, a lot of it is playing around and getting frustrated. Just what you said, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't connecting or whatnot. They've made it easier, because I looked at that a long time ago as well. And I'm like, yeah, it's a little clunky, but now I've gone back and even like with Make, I wasn't a big fan of Make. I preferred Zapier, but now I've started to come around to that as well. And, nowadays there's so many things online, tutorials that are great. So, I think just keep plugging along, because those, everything's still working the kinks out, so to speak. But I think once you start with one and you kind of wrap your head around the logic and how, they all kind of follow similar steps. So, I think that, maybe one isn't so user friendly, but you'll find one that is.
So what's your current AI tool of choice in terms of I'll call them the big LLMs?
Yes. So right now, I actually love Relevance AI. I've been using Relevance. It was one of the first ones I started playing around with. And so I like how I can create agents, and then I can have sub agents. The organization of the application, it works for my brain.
I've never used that one.
Yeah, Relevance.
Wow, I'm going to have to check that out.
And there's lots. But just I've been using it, and I've been very happy with it.
Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to come back to AI because we could spend the whole time on that, and I would just, just quiz you on all the AI stuff so you can teach me and teach everybody. But let's go back. Let's talk about your journey a little bit. So before you started your bankruptcy firm, you started at, I'll call it sort of big law here in Atlanta, right?
I did. I started with one of the big law firms in town. I was a tech nerd in law school too. And so I was one of those law students that I said, I'm only going to do tech. I'm only going to do corporate. I never, ever want to do litigation. Never want to be in court. I was that person. I will say, luckily, because I went to Emory for law school, Emory actually has a program called Trial Techniques, and they require you, it doesn't matter what you think you're going to do, they require you to go through this Trial Techniques program in the summer. At the time, I thought it was a complete waste of my time, and I was a little grouchy about it. But it's so funny because now looking back, I am so grateful that I did that program, because even now, like, I'll think back like, oh, yep, okay, yep. So, if I hadn't had that, none of my courses were litigation focused. I didn't even take a bankruptcy class in law school. I mean, I was so tech focused. So yeah, I took a job. I was a technology attorney before I got into bankruptcy.
And the firm you were at is, at least was
yes
known as sort of had the big technology software practice here in town, and they worked all over the country. I think they went to California a bunch, so it was a good place to be.
They did. I mean, when I was there, we actually did more IPOs than any other firm on the East Coast. I mean, it was a hot time. It was a very hot time to be in tech.
Wasn't there a law firm here in town? It was like the Red Hot
Law.
Mm-hmm. Red Hot Law.
And there was a big scandal because with the Georgia bar about her name was supposed to be. It was very petty.
Yeah.
So then she added Red Hot Law and then her name, which I thought was funny. Yes.
They changed that rule finally a number of years ago where you don't have to put your name in anymore. Because I had to do that for my firm, and then they changed it. It's like, I'm taking my name out. So.
I didn't know. I just remember she had to add her name, so it was very funny.
Okay, so you started out as a tech lawyer at a big law firm, but then you pivoted to bankruptcy, even though you'd never taken a bankruptcy class.
Yes.
So what? Tell me about that pivot.
So what happened? And it's funny. I think sometimes what you think is the worst thing that could ever happen to you in your career, turns out to be the best. For me, when I'm a little dinosaur. So when the .com, bubble burst, the law firm I was at, of course, had invested heavily in all these tech clients. And so they were laying off partners, they were moving people around. It was a bloodbath. And so I had actually talked to my old tech company that I worked for out in Silicon Valley. And so they had actually offered me to come and work in-house. And so that's what I was going to do. I was going to move to California, and I was just going to work in-house. And I had lunch with one of my mentors, and he said, you're so young in your career. And he said, if you go in-house, you're really going to pigeonhole yourself. And he said, why don't you just try something? Just try another area of law. I was like, okay. So I'm looking. Of course, you couldn't find a corporate job anywhere, right? Because of everything that was going on. But the two fields that were hiring were bankruptcy and personal injury. And I figured, with my corporate background, bankruptcy probably was a better fit than PI. And so I got a job at a bankruptcy boutique firm, and I absolutely loved it.
It's funny how these things happen in life and in career. You're probably at the time devastated. You see the carnage all around you, and you're like, what the hell?
Completely. I felt like such a loser, such an idiot. Like my whole focus was tech. I wanted to be a tech lawyer. I wanted to be a tech lawyer. I mean, that was everything. But I will tell you something funny now looking back. Even when I was at my heyday at the tech firm, I can remember being across the table doing deals at these CEOs, these very innovative people that were creating these products. And I remember being a little bit envious and thinking, okay, well, I'm putting together the deal, but I'd really like to be the person over on that other side, that's creating something. So, everything has kind of come full circle for me now. So in the end, I'm actually very grateful for that journey. But at the time I was not.
Yeah. So you had mentioned in your intro that you're an entrepreneur, and obviously you started your firm. I don't know if you've started any other businesses, but have you always had that sort of entrepreneurial drive, or was that something that you discovered later?
No, I mean, I think I've always had that entrepreneurial drive. I will tell you, as a side note, when I was in law school, I was so horribly poor, and I was constantly, I was working part time. I was working as much as they would allow me to work, because you're not supposed to work full time when you're in law school. But I started doing websites as a side gig, and so I was consulting even when I was a law student just to make some extra money. So, I was doing that and I enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie. It's nice being your own boss and just, working, at my own pace. And because websites were so new back then, that is how old I am. I had plenty of business. So that's really how I, supported myself when I was in law school.
So you pivot and start working in bankruptcy. Eventually you go out and start your own firm. Tell me about sort of the genesis of that.
Yeah, so I was actually at a boutique firm here in town. This is a funny story, but it's the truth. I was there for 6 weeks. And I started going to court. By the way, fell in love with going to court. Once, I don't know, it was funny. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I was so opposed to this, but started going to court, loved it, and realized like, wow, like, I could do this. And so I was at this firm for 6 weeks. The woman who mentored me ended up becoming my law partner. And so she had been there for years, and we had lunch, and I said, I think we could really do this well. And we left and we started our own firm. And that was 2004, and, was great.
So you were the one that pushed her out.
I was. Did not make me very popular at the boutique, but I did talk her into, starting a firm, and it was great. And it's scary, and looking back on it, I'm so glad I had someone like her, though, that was already seasoned, because I couldn't have done that just by myself. Obviously I was I was practicing for 6 weeks, but the business side of it, that part I was always confident with. My father was an entrepreneur. I'd watched, him. I've worked with a lot of consultants. I've been very blessed to be surrounded by a lot of people who, have their own companies or whatnot. So that was great.
So let's go back to the early days. You're at this firm for 6 weeks, and you say, all right, let's go start our own. You barely know bankruptcy. You probably don't have a big book of business. So
yeah.
What was the plan? How are you guys going to get clients?
Yeah. Oh my God. And it's so funny now looking back on it. So we got a lot of referrals because my law partner, everyone knew her. And so they're like, oh, you're starting your own firm. And so they would send like cases they were conflicted on, lots of different reasons, but we were already getting a lot of referrals. But I will say we were one of the first firms to have our own website back then. So that was huge. So the first thing I did was put up a website, which now I know today that's just so commonplace, but back then it was not. Most people were advertising in the yellow pages. So that's when, yellow pages were huge. And we did a couple of cheesy things. I know we had like a little ad in an LA Fitness. I laugh now when I think about all the different little things that we did, but we were in some magazines here and there, but it really, and for years, and I think some attorneys still do this, we did mail outs. So we would mail to foreclosure list, people that were getting sued. So we did, direct mail marketing.
I've heard from people, certain practice areas criminal does that. Eminent domain, I've seen some of those letters, So do you still do that? I'm curious.
No. I stopped doing that over a decade ago, but I will tell you, when I did do it, I learned how to sort the mail, put them into their different bins. I would take them to the post office because, we didn't have staff. I had to do all of that. So I had a special machine. I could work for the post office at this point.
It's interesting. I personally have done it. I think everybody that started a firm, that's run a firm, you experiment. You try all these little experiments. You try this, try that, and some of them work, some of them don't. Hopefully your experiment's not too big and expensive, so you don't lose too much if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the website. So yeah, back then, I mean, brand new, did that really just take off? I mean, now SEO, everybody knows about it, but back then it's sort of like there's only one website for bankruptcy probably, right?
It did. It did. And it made it really easy because I also started doing things like putting information for my clients on the website. So then it was easy to send people things, not just keep retyping. There were links, downloads, directions, things like that. So, having a website early, and that also helped having a website early because, for your ranking, just for the age of your domains and, your reputation scores, it was great. So yeah, we were one of the first firms that had a website, a bankruptcy law firm that had a website.
And so I could imagine the case volume sort of shot up fast, I would imagine, and maybe it trickled and then boom, you've got all these cases. And I imagine your practice area is more of a higher volume.
It is a higher volume practice. And of course, COVID hit everyone, including ours. But other than that, it is. I mean, there's high seasons and low seasons. Obviously, when we had, 2007, 2008, that was insane because of the mortgage crisis. And, now I will tell you, we're now seeing a huge uptick again. We're starting to see.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about this. So you're one of these.
I'm the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, you see it before everybody else. And I'm wondering too, to sort of put a date on this, we've been, I guess, been at war with Iran for a while. I guess the war is not, there's a truce or whatever now, but the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, and everybody keeps talking about we're going to see it. It just hasn't worked through the system yet, and all of a sudden we're going to see all these prices go up. So you're already starting to see some things, I guess, and maybe you'll see even more. But what are you seeing?
Yeah. So let me tell you what is interesting is we're seeing a lot of people be underemployed, but I think they're going to stay underemployed, especially seeing like mid-level management from all fields really, and they're being replaced. Now, yes, some of it is AI. I mean, you definitely do see that. I'm seeing people that, they've been making six figures for a decade, and then there's a merger or they just, reduction in workforce and they cannot find another job similar. So now, their whole lifestyle has been six figure and they have to scale it down. And so then that's where, their mortgage is behind. They're going to lose that, $60,000, $70,000 car that they finance. So yeah, we're already seeing that. But right now it's really, most all of my clients have jobs. It's not that they don't have jobs. It's just that they're now underemployed.
So I wonder if we took just your new matter signing information for the last 20 years, ever since your firm's been in, and just plotted it on a graph, and then we put the economy behind it on the same graph. I would love to see the prediction.
It's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah. So are you like is it a 3-month, a 6-month, or a 9-month sort of predictor?
I would say, honestly, it usually seems like we're about a 6-month predictor. You'll see, like last year, we started seeing the car repos. Like all of a sudden, the car repos were kind of just shooting up. And then it was the evictions. People can't even afford to keep up their rent. Now that's serious because that's where you live. So, we're kind of seeing this. And now, I don't know if you saw this, but last month was like the highest rate of foreclosures since like 2007, 2008, like in terms of foreclosures. So it's like all of a sudden, I think the banks have just said, we're done. We've been stretching all of this. We've been doing all these loan modifications. I mean, last month was a circus for us. My staff is about to lose their mind. They're like, where are all these foreclosures coming from? And because they weren't with me back in 2008, I'm like, oh, this is par for the course. This is normal. And so I suspect that we're going to keep seeing that each month now.
So a couple questions. One on the cars. I mean, the prices of cars got so outlandish. I mean, just so out of hand. Maybe this will get the car prices coming back down. I don't know. What do you think? If I hold out, maybe I'll get a good deal.
Yeah, maybe you'll get a good deal. Yeah, it is crazy. The car prices are crazy, and our courts have had to adjust their requirements because it used to be in bankruptcy. A lot of people don't know this. There's Chapter 7 bankruptcy where you're just getting rid of all of the debts pretty fast, like 4 months. But a Chapter 13 bankruptcy can go on for years because this is a debt consolidation repayment plan. So, you live in Atlanta, there's a good chance somebody's going to wreck into your car, or you're going to something's going to happen. So while you're in a bankruptcy, you can get another car. You just have to get court permission. And it used to be the trustees were like, nothing over $20,000. Well, you can't get a car. There's no way. 40,000, yeah, but not 20. And so it's very funny. Like, we had a couple of moments where we're like, no, the client isn't being extravagant. That's what the car cost.
It is obscene. Car prices are obscene.
Yeah, they're obscene.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're seeing an uptick. Does that mean you're hiring? Are you to the point yet where you're like, all right, we got to start hiring?
Yeah, it's funny. And yeah, we're definitely going to have to expand our staff. Now, I'm very intentional when I do that, especially my team. We're very close knit. We've been together for years. And so I never want to bring in the bad apple, right? Because it will affect all of us. So I do know we're going to be expanding. We are, of course, a lot of our administrative tasks now, though, we're using agents. And, not to keep harping on AI, but that is one of the fabulous things about it is it's just the administrative work. As an attorney, sometimes you're like, wow, I'd like to practice law, but I'm doing all of this administrative stuff. And it's your stack is up here. So using agents for that has been has been great for my team.
So tell me some of the things you're using agents for. Good
Sure.
time to come back to the AI.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, my field, we're very document intensive. We're looking at pay stubs, taxes, lawsuit notices. So lots of documents, lots and lots of documents. And so instead of a document getting uploaded, someone having to go through the whole thing, summarize it, save a note in the file, put it into the client's file. Now I have an agent that will do that. And so as clients upload documents, the agent will review it, will summarize it, will actually rename the file because, clients are just, it's just going to be doc 2000, whatever. But the agent will actually rename the file. So I've got the date, I've got the client's first name, last name, and then I've got what it is. Is it pay stubs? Is it taxes? Is it a lawsuit? Is it miscellaneous? But it will rename it, and then it will put it in a folder, and then it will put notes in actually the project management system and the CRM, and it will notify the person who has that file, and it just does it like that. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, that's a very simple thing, but it saves a lot of time. Trust me, my admin staff are really happy about that.
I just can't imagine, you got 300 clients that are uploading 50 documents each. And somebody could just spend all day, every day, just doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And so now with AI, it's literally just minutes, and it's fabulous. I will say this, AI still has bugs. It's not perfect. That's why, I'm lucky that I have a tech background, so I can, if I get a notice that there was an error or something, I can go in and I can fix it, or I can, say, oh, okay, it was this or whatnot. I get solicited all the time from consultants, like, I can build you this, I can build you that. But at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to maintain it. So I think as an attorney, especially if you have your own practice, I think it's worth the time to invest a little bit into some AI education. Because, it's technical, but it's getting easier and easier.
I'd love to hear that sales call where a tech vendor is trying to sell you on something and you start asking these questions and they're like, let me get back to you.
Yeah, that's usually, they'll schedule a call with their manager is usually, usually it.
Yeah. I didn't expect this kind of sales call. That's funny. All right, so let's talk about back to your firm. So over the years, you started your firm with your partner. How has your role changed as your firm has changed and as your firm has grown in terms of all legal work, all management, combination of both, whatever?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, when you start your own firm, I mean, you're wearing every hat. And I will tell you, my biggest weakness is delegation. I get called on that all the time. My staff calls me on it. They're like, let that go. Let that go. It is still hard for me. But over the years, that's been the biggest thing. Going from handling everything and then, being able, and they say, okay, yes, you're like, no, but nobody can do it like me. Okay, but they can do it, right? They can do it. So learning to delegate, that's been the biggest thing for me. Now, I still very much enjoy practicing law, and I still cover a few court calendars a week. For me, and until I can't, get into the courtroom, I'll probably always try to do that because it's very important. I think you have to see what are the judges doing, the trustees, what are, new trends that we're seeing with creditors. And there's just something that, can't be replaced by sitting in a courtroom and listening to a judge and, and taking that all in. And not that I don't trust my attorneys, but it's, at the end of the day, it's my firm and I'm the one setting the policy. So I most certainly need to know, what's going on.
And I mean, that's the other cool thing about if you have your own firm, you get to decide what you get to do and what you don't get to do. So
Yes.
if you like practicing law, then, you're going to design the firm so you get to practice law.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Real quick, if you haven't gotten a copy yet, please check out my book, The Law Firm Life Cycle. It's written for law firm owners and those who plan to be owners. In the book, I discuss various issues that come up as a law firm progresses through the stages of its growth, from just before starting a firm to when it comes to an end. The Law Firm Life Cycle is available on Amazon. Now back to the show. Okay, so let's talk about getting clients. So this is the theme of getting clients. So early on, we talked about some of the things you did, and getting ready for this, I came across your YouTube channel. So I know you do a lot of YouTube stuff.
Yes.
You got a pretty good subscriber count. You got over 8,000, at least when I checked.
I know for bankruptcy, which, I mean, not a sexy topic.
So that's, I imagine you're going to start getting more subscribers if the trend is going the way you think it is. But how did you get into the YouTube? What started you down that path?
Yeah. So I will tell you, it was very funny. Gosh, this was so long ago. This is going to sound cheesy, but it's the truth. I love all of the self-help, like motivational folks. I love Tony Robbins. I know that's not a cool thing to say, but I like Tony Robbins. And my husband knew it. And so Tony Robbins came to Atlanta to talk, and my husband got tickets because he knew he didn't want to see it, but he got tickets for us and we went. But the funny part of this story is it wasn't Tony Robbins that I ended up like, oh, wow, that was some good bit of advice. There was a guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, and I'd never heard of him. He came on. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a very colorful guy, says the F word a lot, but he's really funny. And he was talking about social media and just YouTube, everything. And really, like, he's the one I'm like, you know what? I'm going to really look into this. And I had been doing some stuff here, some stuff there, but I really leaned into it. And I think the best thing I got out of all of that was pick your thing and then just focus on it. And so, I mean, I have Instagram and I have Facebook, but YouTube is what I picked. And I started going on there, and instead of doing the kind of the little mini infomercial, I just started talking and just about just kind of normal things I thought my clients, or consumers would be interested in. And I just started getting a lot of great feedback. I just got a notification last week that I hit my 1,000,000th view.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. But now with that said, I've had my YouTube channel a really long time. So, I mean, it's been like time, like consistently, I giggle when I look at some of my earlier videos, and I'm like, oh, but, I mean, you just have to start doing it.
So let me ask this. We talked before we got on, you've got teenagers, I'll call it. So I'm on some social media too. And of course, my son, like his friends found me, and then I started showing up as their screensaver just to mess with him. Do you get any trash from your kids or their friends?
I do. When my kids were little, funny enough, my son came home and he goes, Mom, do you know you're all over the internet? And apparently they were Googling their mothers for some reason. I don't know. And he said that all my stuff started coming up, and I'm like, well, that's for work. But he was a little annoyed, and both my children have made me swear I will never do a billboard. They have like made me swear, like, please, please. That was a threat I used to have for them. I'm like, I will do a billboard right over your school if you know. Yeah, they were horrified. But yeah, I've gotten some grief from them about my social media presence.
It's like, I've got your car. It's got a wrapper on it, and my face is on the side.
I didn't think about that. That's a really good one.
Yeah. Okay, so you went and saw Vaynerchuk, and you're like, all right, I'm going to do this. So
Yeah.
I mean, I have been, and I use myself as an example because I've been saying I got to do YouTube, I got to do YouTube, but it's just hard for me to go do it. So what made you do it?
Yes.
What got you to do it?
Yeah. So going back to marketing, we were doing the direct mail. I was paying for Google ads. You know, I mean, I did AdWords, did all of that. I'm spending a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, I was getting a good return on investment, but I just hated the whole circus of it. And I just thought, you know what? I think I would rather put my time and energy into that. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, I'll have waves where I'll be able to, you know, right now I haven't made a video in a minute because we've been so busy. But, you know, I mean, for me, what made me do it is the future, you know, income, production that it could do and save me money. So I just literally, you know, would carve out. I would say, okay, I'm going to batch it. I'm going to do 4 videos this weekend, and I would do it every weekend. And, you know, over time, it just really has built up. As a matter of fact, pretty much every consult that I do, first thing the person will tell me, oh, I found you on YouTube. I really liked this video on this topic. And I mean, it's great. I mean, I shouldn't even admit this, but I have not paid for marketing in a very, very long time.
Okay, let's talk about that. So all these clients coming in, and I'm sure you track for attribution. And so a lot of them are coming from YouTube. And I mean,
majority of my clients, and just, you know, we're talking about SEO. Well, now SEO is kind of, you know, shifting because now we have Claude, we have ChatGPT. So now you have, you know, LLM models. And so I'm getting people that are now coming to me and saying, ChatGPT told me that it suggested you. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I have done nothing, you know, I haven't been solicited by them, but I haven't done anything with that. But even when you go into a browser, you know, even if they're not specifically going into YouTube, you know, Google will still pick up my videos. So when someone's doing a search, it'll give them an article, but then it will also give them my videos. So, you know, for me, it's been a game changer.
yeah, I need to get on that. I really do.
I mean, and it's funny because I am actually a very introverted person. Like, I am not comfortable just, you know, standing up there. But I will tell you, I think it is nice for an introverted person because just you and the camera, right? So, you know, the tools they have now make it so much easier, even for doing the recording or whatnot. I mean, I record most of my recordings I do on my iPhone. When I first started, I did have a fancy Canon, and I would have the setup and all of that. And now, you know, I mean, the technology is such, I mean, you know, I have a ring light and I have my iPhone, and, you know, I use Descript to do my editing, which is great. You know, it'll automatically put captions on there, and it's quick, it's easy.
You know, talking to a camera, that is a skill that you got to develop because I imagine, again, you mentioned sort of your first videos. I imagine you've gotten better at it. You watch some of your videos and you're like, oh, I got to be more expressive or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, you know, before it was very funny. Like I said, it's very funny. My kids also get a nice little giggle out of those videos too. You know, the stiff lawyer videos. I know I've got a bookcase behind me, but, you know, they always have the bookcase and all of the, you know, whatever. But yeah, they've gotten better over the years.
You got to work your kids in the videos. You think you can do that?
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we're going to make you famous, kids. We're going to make you famous. Yeah. So that's cool. So it sounds like YouTube is like your number one marketing and biz dev engine.
It is. I love the feedback that I get. And it's funny, I'll have clients send me emails to go, you need to do a video on this. And so they'll give me topics. They're like, Miss Sadie, you need to put a video about this because this came up, which is great. I mean, I love it. But for me, I mean, that's the medium I'm going to stick to. And of course, like I said, I mean, I have an Instagram, I have Facebook, but no, YouTube is what has worked for me. And so that's what I'll continue to use.
And, look, you get referrals. I gave your name to somebody about a week or so ago. I don't know if they called, but, you probably still get some referrals, right?
I do. I mean, I do. I get a ton of referrals. I get clients that come back that, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 something years. So, I get people that have come back and so, I mean, the majority of my business comes from online and from YouTube, but I get a ton of referrals as well.
I mean, that's the thing about social media. It can be hard to break through, but sort of once you do, that it can sort of sustain. And it takes time and effort, but it's sort of free, right?
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you are a young attorney starting out, that would be my best bit of advice is pick a channel, and then just start creating content, but create useful things. I mean, I mean, you're not just, not doing an ad. Oh, this is why you should choose me, but give people, information and help them. And, and it will definitely pay off.
So let's talk about growing your firm too. So we've talked about the marketing piece. Obviously, you've got the tech operations piece going. How much time do you spend on that? Is it pretty much built out, or are you always tinkering with it?
I'm always tinkering with it. I mean,
just can't help it.
I'm a geek. I'm a geek. And the joke is on the weekends, I'll come in my office and I'm like, leave me alone. I want to play. And when I want to work on my tools, or I'll do courses, what's new, what's coming out. And I am kind of bad about that. I'll be like, ooh, I want to try that. Ooh, I want to try.
Well, it's hard to keep up nowadays. I mean, there's so much coming out.
Yeah, you have to be careful with that. And like I said, my staff is constantly like, is this a new, what are you going to torture us, this month with? But no, I mean, I absolutely, I absolutely will be tinkering with tech constantly through the week. I mean, right now, just because we're so busy, I am doing, we've got, right now we've got kind of some crazy trials, things like that. So I'm having to kind of, manage that part, but we definitely are in that scaling phase right now.
That's cool. And I'm always interested in what sort of routines and what sort of things people use to get their quote success. It sounds like tinkering and experimenting at least is part of yours. What other sorts of things do you think sort of set you up and your firm up for success?
I think for me, I've learned that I have to take care of myself first, which has been really, really hard, especially if you're a mom or a parent. I shouldn't say mom. If you're a parent, that's been very, very hard. And so I think that what's really set me up for success is I've learned to protect that. I'm like, okay, I've got to protect my time. I've got to make sure that, I'm good with my family, with my kids, and that I give myself a moment. And it's funny, as techie as I am, I actually, like, when I'm like planning, I actually still use a written planner. And a lot of my friends are like, what are you, like, you? And I'm like, yep, I do. And it's just a thing. And I've always done it. And I'm also a geek because I've had a planner since I was in the 3rd grade. And it's just, and and I even save them. I have a collection. My mother is like, still like, I am mocked by my family because of this, but it's what I do. I mean, it's funny. Like, I journal like every morning, and it just kind of sets my pace. And then then I go into tech land. But I think for me, that's really what sets up my day, is being able to just have, even if it's 5 minutes of just peace, journaling, whatnot. That's the one thing I picked up years ago, and it's worked for me.
And I'll tell you, I think there's a huge thing going analog. I mean, we're just bombarded with these electric signals everywhere. And there's something about, I mean, my handwriting is so bad, I still like to write, but it's the sort of thing that a week later, I can't even tell what I wrote.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah. But yeah, I had a planner. I mean, and I'm convinced that's why I did well in school, because I would write all that stuff down.
100%, 100%. And I do, like I said, I still write. I still like to write my planner down.
Okay, so let me ask this. You've been running your firm for a while now. You've seen ups and downs. You're seeing an uptick now. What are some of the big challenges that you've seen over the years in running and growing your firm?
When we start to get really busy, of course, you'll have issues where things will, drop through the cracks. What we do, we're dealing with people who are, they're very stressed out. They're dealing with very emotional things. And so the last thing you want to do is add more stress to that. And, I'll when we start to get busy, I will see my team will start to be running a little thin. And it's like I'll start, we're working a little bit later, it's taking a little bit longer on things. And so, when you start to see those warning signs, that's when you have to step in and you've got to, maybe it's just bringing in people temporarily, right, to help, relieve, the spike or whatnot. But you definitely, you have to triage that fast because, and that's when you have problems. So right now, we're having team meetings in terms of, okay, how are we going to implement this? How are we going to implement that? And I will tell you, my goal has never been to be what we call a bankruptcy mill. There are some firms in town and they file hundreds and hundreds of cases a month. And that's fine. That's their business model. That's never been my business model. And it never will be my business model because we're not a solo, we're in the middle. And I like being a mid-sized firm. I like controlling the type of cases that we take. We don't take every case. We'll refer a lot to the mills. We just don't take everything. And so, I think when you get to a certain point, to me, that's a luxury, but it's nice. And it lets me design the pace of the firm, that I want, that works. I do not want to be, like I said, I always tell people, I don't want to be the largest filer in Georgia. I want to be the best. I don't want to be the largest.
And you brought up a good point, and we hadn't touched on this. This is a good time, is the clients that are coming to you, I imagine, are just extremely stressed out. I mean, they're in a tough spot. Maybe they're getting foreclosed on, all the things that come with financial problems. And then, of course, that would put strain on your staff. And how do you manage, and you too, how do you manage without putting all of your clients' burdens on your shoulders?
Yeah. And it's like PTSD, right? I mean, personal injury is the same way. I mean, you're dealing with people that have really horrible things that are happening to them, and the way, and we joke, it's like, yes, we're an attorney, but you also sometimes you feel like a counselor. And so, I think everyone on my staff, this job isn't for everybody. And everybody on my staff, it's like when you deal with doctors, it's like they have to, you've got to be focused and serious to get to the heart of the matter, but you want to have a good bedside manner too, because you have to be empathetic with what your patient, your client is going through. I will tell you, I get that a lot. I'll have people call me and they'll say, "Thank you for being nice." And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I be nice? And they said, well, I called a firm and they were just really kind of hard and they made me feel bad, and it's like, that's to each his own. And again, we all have our own style. I'm not everybody's cup of tea either, but it is hard not to take on what these folks are going through. But that's also why, I like to explain to people when we meet with people, that's why bankruptcy, I love this area, because we can immediately say, hey, you know what? You're not going to lose your house. We're going to stop that. You're not going to have your paycheck garnished. We're going to get your car back, because we can do all these things. So I think, being able to quickly set expectations and kind of calm them down and say, okay, this happened, but now this is how we're going to fix it. So,
and I would imagine your clients, the ones that you help, you get them through this very stressful time. I mean, they got to be so appreciative. I mean,
listen, 99% of my clients, I mean, I get cards, I get flowers, I get hugs, which is great. And I always joke with people, like, I'm a happy lawyer. I like what I do. I'm sure there's a lot of really unhappy lawyers. They don't like practicing law. They don't like their colleagues. They don't like their clients. And I feel sorry for them. I mean, my advice is do something else. You don't have to be, a lawyer or pick another field. But I really do enjoy what I do. And I think that if you do, I think that's conveyed to your clients. So I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky. I for the most part, my clients are rock stars. They're great and they're very appreciative.
And I think that comes through very obviously just from talking to you. So circling back to, you want to be a tech lawyer and you just sort of somehow got on this path. Is speaking to other lawyers out there that may be thinking, well, how do I get on another path? And any advice to them if they're not necessarily enthused where they are in their career?
Yeah. So I would say my best bit of advice would be, if you're not happy where you're at, think about why you're not happy, right? I mean, is it just that particular place? But find an area that you're interested in. And then, there's so much out there now. I mean, we're talking about YouTube. We're talking about there's online classes. There's all these things. And hey, I've done all those things. I've sat and done some of these cheesy little online classes or whatever. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it. I'm going to see. I just admitted I like Tony Robbins.
Did you do the fire walk? Did you do the fire walk?
No. I'm not like that. But I've read the books and I do. I like him and I do. I get teased all the time. But if you're an attorney out there and you're not, or anybody, and you're not happy with where you're at, do that. And the other thing I would say is, so many times I see these young attorneys and they'll start their firm. And I think that, they start out with like a great idea and a mission, and then they get kind of consumed by all these people. Oh no, you're doing it wrong. You should buy this. You should do that. And I think that's how they get in trouble. And then you see them kind of wash out in a few years. I think, just pick, like I tell my clients, pick a path and stick on it. And I mean, just literally keep your head down and stick on it. And I think that, it worked well for me. I mean, we had no money when we started our firm, and it definitely took, it takes a while, but you just gotta trust your gut, but you also have to do something that you like.
Yeah. So you mentioned you don't want your firm to be the big mill. The culture, you said it's very important to you. You don't want to add some different personality into the mix. As you're sitting here today, what's next for your firm? Is it exactly how you like it? Is there anything that you want it to be or you're going towards?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I definitely will probably be expanding by a couple of attorneys over the next 12 months. I think that's just inevitable just because of what's going on in my market. But it's funny. I think the next thing that's really is already coming into our firm is I've already been working on side projects for developing tech products, legal products, and also even online courses, educational courses. And so for me personally, that is where I will be, I guess, going off into the sunset, so to speak, but that's what I enjoy. So that's what I see for my future. Yes, growing my firm, but also expanding into those areas because for me, they just kind of go hand in hand.
All right, let's talk about that. So these side projects, is there anything you can announce yet? Or are they all in development?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've got 2 courses that are going to be launching in the next 60 days. One of them is how to close your business. So I have a lot of people who, during the pandemic, whatnot, they come to me, they need to file bankruptcy because their business didn't work. And then they're asking me, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? Now, I used to do corporate law, but I don't have time, to sit and close down, show, okay, this is what you need to do. Here's your checklist, all of this. So I started beta testing, so to speak, with some of my clients of sending them like a walkthrough. And and of course I have videos and I've got forms and checklists and things like that. And I've been, through that feedback have been perfecting it. So now I'll have something that I can, it's an add-on to not just my clients, anyone, but, specifically like a lot of people they're going into bankruptcy or, have a failed business. And there's certain things they need to do and not do if they're also going to file bankruptcy.
So will you sell that course through your law firm, or are you going to have a separate
No,
business?
no. I have a separate company set up called Reliance Legal Education. And I have the courses I have are how to file a Chapter 7, how to file Chapter 13. I get a lot of people who reach out to me from other states. Of course, I only practice in Georgia. I get a lot of people, and they're like, I don't know if I want to hire an attorney, and I get that. I get that. But I do have courses that explain the process, show what you need to consider or whatnot. And then sometimes I get people who they go through my courses and then they hire me, which that's great. But those are other courses that I'll be officially launching probably in about 60 days.
Well, that's cool. I'll look for that. I always like hearing lawyers that through the practice of law, they come up, they see little problems that need to get solved, and then it creates side hustles or other businesses. That's cool.
Yeah. And like I said, it's just everything's kind of come full circle for me. So if I can get back into tech, and, I'm working on agents and things like that, which I may end up licensing later. So, it's fun. It's fun.
Nice.
I'm a happy nerd.
Go for it. I mean, that's the thing. You live once. Do the things that you like, and you've set up your firm and your life in a way that you're able to do that. So why not?
And everybody's definition of success is different, and I think you just have to be happy, happy with what you've got.
So, okay, last question. We've been going a while. So for people out there that want to start a firm, or maybe in the early days of starting their firm, any advice you'd give them in terms of building and growing the firm that works for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely don't underestimate how long you're going to not have revenue. I think a lot of people, I see a lot of young attorneys, I think money's just going to start flowing in, I think that, you definitely, when I started mine, in my head was I need to have six months if I'm not going to have a dime. And I've got to be able to cover all of my expenses. That's another thing. I would definitely tell folks, be on a shoestring budget when you start. The big fancy offices, the flashy ads, you do not need that when you start. You most certainly do not need it. I actually joke that I'm actually trying to get away from having an office. If I could not have an office, I would love that. I mean, we still have a physical office or whatnot, but I see friends and colleagues. I'm like, you are spending a lot of money, for that. And now, especially nowadays, I just don't think it has the same impression on people that it did. So. And
listen to Lorena, because she sees a lot of people who've gotten into money troubles. So.
I do. I see everything in reverse. Yes, I do. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. That's true. But that would be my best bit of advice is, when you first go out there, yes, you can do it on a shoestring, so to speak. But, just put in your head, you're not going to have money for at least 6 months.
Yeah. And then hopefully you have lots of money.
And then hopefully you have lots of money. Yes.
So Lorena, thanks for coming on. This has been real fun. It's been fun learning about your background and the cool little side gigs you got that could turn into big businesses. We'll see. But if anybody out there wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, the best way is online, of course. Go to my website, saedilawgroup.com. That's the fastest way to grab me. You can even schedule a time to talk with me online. You don't even have to talk to anybody in my office. There's a link, and you can just find a time, and I'm always happy to chat with folks about any bankruptcy issues.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. This has been fun.
No, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Founding Partner Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the show notes with links to resources mentioned throughout our discussion by visiting www.lawfirmgc.com. We'll see you next time for more origin stories and insights from successful law firm founders.